Hi, I'm Jean Hobin, Marketing Communications Director at Benjamin Rose Institute on Aging, and I want to welcome you all to our this presentation in our series of programs for caregivers, social isolation and the pandemic, or surviving the holidays at this time. If you're not familiar with Benjamin Rose, we are a Cleveland-based nonprofit organization providing services and supports for older adults and caregivers to help older adults remain independent in the community. We have a lot of programs. That our two presenters today are from our Behavioral Health Services program. That's one of the services we offer through our Elder Care Services Institute. We also have many other services, again, to provide support and care for older adults and caregivers, including a telephone-based care coaching program called We Care Because You Do. So we're going to get started. I'd like to introduce our speakers today. Tam Cooper, who is the Associate Director of our Behavioral Health Services program, and Kerstin Yoder, who is a social worker and group facilitator for our day treatment program. So ladies, I'll leave it to you.
Okay, well, thank you, Jean, for that wonderful introduction. As Jean had mentioned, my name is Kerstin, and I'm part of the day treatment program and social worker here at Benjamin Rose. And of course, joined with me is Tamar Cooper, our Associate Director of Behavioral Health Services. Thank you for giving us some time this afternoon to touch upon something that I think is very near and dear to all of us, you know, social isolation, the holidays, and of course, the pandemic. COVID-19, the pandemic, it has touched all of us in some way to some degree. You know, the last 7 to 8 months have been a whirlwind, just a storm of various different things. I know for me, I've had to rethink everything, rethink work, my family, you know, everything, even going for groceries. You know, I've had to rethink and have a whole new reality to kind of deal with. And, you know, you hear stuff all the time from federal governments, state governments, county governments. No matter where you live or where you do, there, you know, everybody has suggestions on what you should do, what you shouldn't do. It's changing, it's this, it's that. It can all be very overwhelming. So this afternoon, we're just going to look at, you know, the social isolation. We're going to look a little bit of, touch very briefly upon depression, then get into the isolation part and look through it because we are coming into a tough time. The holidays are a very rough time of year to begin with for anybody. Add to it the COVID-19 pandemic, and again, it's a whole new ballgame. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and do the slides. We do have time at the end of the presentations for comments or questions. So please hold any comments or questions that you might have to the end. We do have a chat box as well, should you want to type in a comment or question, and we'd be more than happy to answer it. So,
and I think too, if I can interject, while it's been difficult for us, imagine the toll that this has taken on the older adult and the caregiver. Most older adults are isolated anyways. And so as Kerstin said, as we go through this presentation, I hope we'll be able to touch on some topics and provide you all with some hints on what you can do to help those that you love.
Absolutely. Thank you, Tam. That's a wonderful reminder that, yes, as much as it's hard on us, it's more those loved ones in our lives, our neighbors, our friends, and our families that, you know, as well. So isn't depression just a normal part of aging? Well, many people mistakenly think that persistent depression is an acceptable response and a normal part of aging, especially this time of year. Well, as many of you may or may not know, depression is not a normal part of aging. That's one of the major myths with aging individuals. Emotional experience of sadness, grief, loss, blue moods, those are normal. We expect those as we get older. You can't live life without experiencing, you know, each and every one of those. However, persistent depression or feelings of sadness that begin to interfere significantly with your functioning or with a loved one's functioning, an aging adult's functioning, that's not necessarily, you know, kind of what you would expect or normal. Next slide, please. Okay, if you or a loved one are experiencing any of these feelings on a persistent basis, the trick is 2 weeks or more. Because again, we do recognize that it could be common to feel blue or sad or persistent loss especially during this time, especially with the pandemic. A lot of us are self-isolating. We're quarantining to protect our loved ones, our family. And, as Tam had mentioned, the aging adult is already maybe isolated or withdrawn for their own reasons. So you want to look for if you're feeling nervous, empty, worthless, a lack of enjoyment, restless, irritable, unloved, that life is not worth living. These are all signs that maybe something more is going on.
And these are consistent, right? Consistent, persistent, consistent, not just fleeting moments of, I'm not feeling like anyone cares, or just that minor irritability.
Absolutely. If you're sleeping more or eating more, these can all be a sign of depression, and something to talk to either your doctor or a trusted healthcare provider or friend about. You just don't want to blow them off. But again, as Pam said, the key word here, as we're going to find out, is persistent and consistent, not just kind of the random here or there. Next slide, please. Other symptoms that may signal depression include, I think we're going to have them kind of coming in here. Chronic feelings of being tired or sluggish, frequent headaches, frequent stomach aches, I should say stomach aches, chronic pain. I think there's some more coming. Worry and nervous tension, anhedonia, a general loss of the ability to feel pleasure, and a lack of interest in personal care. Normally with the aging adult, you'll see the lack of interest in personal care as one of the key signs. And where you got to kind of also be careful too is many older adults grew up in a time when you didn't talk about mental health. You didn't talk about symptoms. You didn't talk about depression. You kept it hush, hush. You kept it in the family. Because again, they might have grown up in a time of institutionalization where you were sent away if you said any of the.
And I think too,
Please.
It's differentiating between what's happening now in COVID and what it is, because many of us are at home, right? So we could be listening to this webinar in our pajamas, right? We could, maybe not have put on makeup in a long, long time and only did it for this presentation. Being tuned in to what is that lack of interest in personal care look like? The difference between what your loved one, what their baseline was and what it is now. And that's the key for a caregiver, to really look at that. Next slide.
Okay, so as we talked about, that was just a brief overview. If you have any concerns about anything we touched upon in those previous slides, please be having discussions with your doctor. Don't be afraid to talk to your loved ones, your aging adults, your friends, your neighbors. If you haven't seen them in a while or haven't at least heard from them, maybe go knock on their door or give a phone call, right? Just to check on them. Maybe don't knock on the door with the pandemic, though. I revise that. Maybe a phone call.
Or with the glove.
As you can see, we're going to move into kind of isolation and loneliness during the COVID, and I kind of liked those pictures. Many people with mental health conditions, and even those without, find change difficult, especially during times of stress like the holiday season and now the pandemic. The shift from traditions to the unknown leave many of us feeling a sense of loss, a sense of disappointment. We had things set a certain way. This time of year, we look forward to certain things, certain traditions that we've always done. And now we're being told, it's a new ball game, new reality we're dealing with. So identifying how both you and your loved ones are feeling, acknowledging the changes a holiday season bring, as well as the change brought on by the pandemic, not romanticizing or comparing your celebrations to others or those of the past can go a long way to bring you some inner peace and joy, especially this year, as this is one of the first years we are going to be dealing with the holidays and the pandemic.
What's interesting is I was watching a news report the other day, and they showed people in nursing homes. Oftentimes the only time people get together would be at Thanksgiving Easter, and Christmas, right? Well, this year, those celebrations, those get-togethers aren't happening. And it really added an increased amount of stress, depression on both sides, for the family and for the person who is in the facility. So both parts, the family, the caregiver, and the people within the nursing home or an assisted living, having to take a different approach at how they're going to celebrate that season, how they're going to take a look at honoring. Oh, there goes my dog.
And I think there goes some of maybe connection too.
Yeah. I'm going to mute this here a second. She has something to say about this. There we go. Just taking a look at how we're going to honor those events.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Okay, next slide, please. Okay, just to take a overall look, social isolation and loneliness are precipitated by a number of factors, which may include living alone, health problems, disability, a loss of mobility. Maybe some people are homebound because they've lost the ability to walk or to be able to go out. As we get older, our bodies change. We're not able to move or bend, maybe like we used to. For those of you that are, God bless you, right? That you still retained all that ability to move. Sensory impairments such as hearing loss, major life events, a death of a spouse, aging siblings and or friends, a drop in a communication with family and friends at the same time, a move to an unfamiliar neighborhood or family members moving for work or other personal reasons, a lack of transportation, something as simple as that. Well, not too simple, and a loss of a sense of purpose. They lose their identity. They feel worthless. They feel they're not contributing to society. And at that loss of sense of purpose, many people might have lost a job during the pandemic. You know, maybe their identity was being able to go to the senior center once a week, or being able to go to their knitting club or their book club, go to the senior center. Maybe they were working part-time, or maybe people were working part-time. Now they don't have that anymore because senior centers closed down. Jobs, unfortunately, have had to make tough decisions. Employers have about what to do in employees. So now those feelings of worthlessness might have increased. What am I doing? I'm sitting home all day, which can definitely add to the loneliness, the isolation, and those feelings of depression. And many people may be reluctant to ask for help for fear of being a burden. I think many times the loved ones in our lives, you know, especially as a caregiver, they might already be afraid they are a burden to us, or already have asked so much of us that they might be afraid to continue asking for more from us for fear of being a burden, even though we would gladly give it if we could. That's something else that, you know, could kind of look for too. So they might isolate, which would lead to that loneliness. So next slide, please. Oh, Tam, did you want to add something?
I was just going to say that's been a big challenge for our behavioral health workers, case managers, social workers, and therapists at our agency, since we've had to shift to telehealth services to really make sure that we reach out consistently and frequently to our clients. You know, there's no face-to-face, so we can't really judge, you know, how is someone feeling, but to call them frequently. Hey, how are you doing? What's going on? Are you know, listening to the cues to these people instead of, you know, before we used to be able to look at somebody and see facial expressions. You know, boy, you don't sound good. You say you're doing well. You don't sound really good. You're not picking up the phone as much. You know, what's going on? Talk to me. Wellness calls, checking up, and that's something that loved ones can do to, or friends or neighbors, or if you do not live nearby your loved one, or you have a busy life, you know, there are neighbors. If you have a social worker that's working with someone, make sure you get a release of information so that you can have that person reach out to your loved one and you guys will be able to share information. I believe that our team has been really successful because they are very professional. They've got a lot of experience with working with older adults, and they just take a lot of pride in establishing a rapport with our clients, and it's their passion to connect with the older adults and just make sure that everybody's doing okay.
Absolutely. Okay. In addition to the factors we just mentioned, we've all been coping and dealing with this coronavirus, COVID-19. And as I mentioned, and Tamar has mentioned, it's asked us to reconsider how we interact with each others, our families, our neighbors, our communities, and add to it, we're moving into traditionally a holiday season, no matter which way we choose or how we choose to celebrate. It's a time of festivities and traditions that many families have upheld. Not being able to gather in person during a time when people are yearning for normalcy and connection, let's be honest, it's tough for everyone, for the caregiver, for the daughter, the son, the mother, the aunt, the person themselves, the aging adult, the grandparents, children, especially if you haven't seen your family much. As Tamar had said earlier, sometimes the only time you get to see your family is Thanksgiving and Christmas, or Thanksgiving and whatever holiday your family chooses to honor or celebrate or not, depending on
And Hanukkah, December
Hanukkah,
10th.
yes, absolutely. We don't want to forget whatever your family chooses to honor or celebrate.
And Kwanzaa at the end of the year, at the end of December, I
Yes,
think.
exactly. And also to those who maybe choose not to celebrate, the holidays as well. At all since this pandemic took hold. So now we got this extra, kind of burden. So next slide, please. To visit or not to visit? That is our question. Many people are experiencing an increased level of stress this year, deciding how they will spend the holidays. Again, you hear on the news, you can't turn on, it seems like, the news anymore without hearing, you should do this, you should do that, we recommend doing this, we recommend doing that. And of course, it's changing every day or every news presentation, depending on when you watch the news. So before making a decision, maybe take some time to sort through your feelings, talk to a friend, journal, or spend some time alone in quiet reflection or meditation. And you don't have to do anything formal for the meditation or listen to a tape. Just to quietly kind of gather your thoughts and really focus on kind of what you're going to need. Once you make that decision, honor it, accept it, and all that it entails, the change, the loss, possible feelings of loneliness, or even those feelings of guilt. And that's something we want to acknowledge too, that many of us may or may not, we might feel guilty. I mean, this
And
is our
don't succumb to pressure. Don't
our loved
succumb to
one.
pressure, whether it's a spouse, a family member, a friend. It's your decision to make, and yours alone.
Absolutely, absolutely. Remember, though, that acknowledging and acceptance can bring resolution. With that comes the action you can take to make this holiday season one to celebrate and remember. So, once you make a choice, feel confident that it is the right choice. There's going to be people who tell you how and what to celebrate and what to do. But, you got to do what is an honor to yourself and what you feel is right for you and your family, or you and your loved ones, because only you know what is best. Next slide. Ah, perhaps you've been thinking it over and came to the decision that it's best not to see a loved one or family for the holidays this year to avoid putting your family or yourself at risk. Even if you know you are making the right choice, feelings of guilt are bound to creep in. There's that guilt again, as we said, that's going to be there. However, as Anna Kloss, therapist, had said, making these hard decisions now helps ensure a future holiday season where everyone is safe and well enough to celebrate together. You might be making the tough choice now. Making this tough choice now ensures that, future next year or even future holiday seasons, we are going to be together to be able to celebrate that tradition once again. I thought that was just, very nicely said. But what if I cannot let go of my guilt that I'm not with my loved ones this year? What if I've written, I've thought about it, and I still have a hard time letting that go? Well, here are a few tips that may help with guilt you may be feeling at not being able to be with your loved ones during the holidays. Give yourself permission to feel safe during the pandemic. You know, you hear it's important to feel safe, not only just to be safe and take the precautions, but feel safe as well during this time when, you know, safety is hard. Okay, next, please. Before you talk to family about your decision, write down all your thoughts and feelings. Writing can be very therapeutic, and just putting your thoughts and feelings into words may help. It can sometimes make sense because you know, you might have so many thoughts swirling around in your head. And don't lose sight of why you are making this choice: to protect your loved ones from a serious virus that may have lingering symptoms, long-term health problems, or heaven forbid, even death in some cases. Next slide, please. Okay, we're going to continue to talk about this feeling of guilt. You can focus your attention, instead of focusing on what you're not celebrating or able to do, maybe focus your attention on planning safe, fun, and holiday activities instead. Okay, what can I do? I know I don't feel comfortable or have chosen not to do this. Maybe I can create some new traditions that spread or honor this time of year without spreading the virus. If you feel comfortable with technology, and no, the pandemic has opened up a whole new world of technology: Zoom, Google Meet, FaceTime, Microsoft Teams, you name it, pretty much we've all used it. But so if you're comfortable with using these tools, maybe consider a virtual watch party, or have everybody come on Zoom with an ugly sweater contest, right? And vote
You
who
know,
has the ugliest sweater.
some of the other things too, if you think about it, being apart during the holidays is not so unique. If you talk to your parents that maybe were Depression era people or World War II, you might be able to come up with some memories that are really different. Talk if they were married when husband was serving in the war. Ask them what they did. Did they read a book at the same time? Did they always say they would look up at the stars at a certain time and remember one another? I mean, you can really learn a lot more about one another, or about your parents or cousins, and create some of those unique linkages that maybe were always there, that can have some positive things that you can pass on even to your children. That doesn't have to be all, I mean, the technology things are really good too, but just some nice little pieces. You talk about recipes. What was the favorite recipe that so-and-so used to like? I know something that my daughter and I do, because we were always sort of separate. She's lived different places and such. We would like the Hanukkah candles apart, and we'd be on the phone, and this was, you know, because I'm like technologically challenged, say prayers, light the candles each night, just different things that you could do. Or somebody could be pulling out an ornament and hanging it on the Christmas tree, or talking about the ornament that so-and-so made, the macaroni ornament, you know, making a promise that you would look out at the stars on Christmas Eve. So building new memories, building more precious ones, making a decision to do something different. So yeah, there's a lot of different things, and maybe there were some things done before in your family history. Go ahead, Kerstin.
No, those are wonderful points. And I think sometimes we forget of the more simple things that are out there. So of course, if you're comfortable with technology, go to it. If you're not, consider a recipe swap, long distance cookie exchange, or, you know, like Tamar said, any number of stuff. There's many ways to connect. Think outside the box. You know, just, it's going to be different, yes, but that doesn't mean it still can't be special, memorable, and still a wonderful time. to connect. And remember, this is only 1 year. With a promising vaccine on the horizon and continued vigilance, use of safety precautions such as wearing facial coverings, social distancing, hand washing, hopefully next year we can all safely gather again together with our friends, our families, and our loved ones. You know, it can be easy, I think, to get caught up in, oh, this is never going to end. It's going to go on forever. It's never going to get better, especially if you have those feelings of loneliness or depression, but that doesn't mean it will always be. So remember, this is only for this year right now. The future is yet unknown. Next slide, please.
There's also 23 days left till Christmas. You can do a gratitude box. So each day, you as a caregiver can write down what you're grateful for about this person. And then Christmas Eve, you know, something simple, or Christmas Day when you talk to that person, that can be your gift to them. Say, I want to read to you and share with you all the things that I'm grateful for you.
Beautiful. That is beautiful. I love those gratitude boxes. Okay, so what can you do to help improve coping during the holidays? And you can see, I love these little sayings that are coming up on the screen right now. You know, they're very inspirational, I think. So we'll give a chance for those to run through, and then we'll move on to the next slide. Life is rough, but things will be okay. Your emotions are valid. I love that one. Okay, next slide, please. Explore hobbies and other areas of interest. This is what Tamar was talking about earlier. Figure out, you know, what did your loved one like to do or relax as a hobby? If they don't have any hobbies, ask if there was one they used to have or would like to revisit. Knitting, you know, or maybe stargazing, you know, talking. For those times between calls when loneliness can strike, explore some options. They can take advantage any time of day. Mental Health America has a support community that is full of individuals who are online night and day. Again, for those who are okay with the internet, for older adults who prefer talking on the phone, there's the friendship line. You can see the number listed right below there. The friendship line is available 24/7 for adults 60 plus, and it'll just offer a caring ear and friendly conversation just to do that. So those are two, you know, resources Tamar and I came across as we were looking into this a little more, so that they do have someone. So in addition to ourselves. Next slide, please. This is the question or comment section of the presentation. Unless Tamar, would you like to add anything to any of the slides or what we might have touched on?
I don't think so. We're open for any questions or comments.
I'll give people a minute to get their questions in. I was wondering, first of all, if you could touch on if you have any tips for if people are having trouble with their older loved one being willing to meet up with people, but they are not comfortable, and how to approach those situations.
Well, when you say meet up with people,
so say your older loved one is willing to get together for the family, but you do not think it's safe. How do you approach those?
Well, the times right now are so precarious. You know, we're being asked not to really socialize that much. I think really explaining to your loved one that, you know, talking to your loved one, if they have any kind of outstanding health issues, talk to them about what's going on with them health-wise, explaining to them more about the situation with the pandemic, then talking to them about who they're meeting with and why it wouldn't be a good idea, you know, the responsibility we have to our loved ones. And I think that would be really helpful. And then also the people that they want to meet with, to have that kind of conversation so that there isn't a meeting. like Kerstin said earlier in the slide, that, you know, maybe we don't meet now so that we can meet later, and that this isn't going to be forever, especially now that there's discussion about having a vaccine on the horizon. It's difficult, but it's necessary.
Exactly. You could maybe also acknowledge too, you know, that's so sweet. You know, it'd be wonderful to see you. I'd really like that. But, you know, I'm just really worried for, you know, your health, our health, for everybody's health. And then offer one of the suggestions that Tamar mentioned, or maybe that was in the slide, or maybe a suggestion that you picked up from yourself, from your own stuff as an alternative. And then again, you know, then we can try it next year, or maybe we can try it in a couple months, you know, and do another celebration then when the vaccine has come out or things have gotten, you know, a little more under control with the virus. It could maybe be
And they're
another way.
community sacrifices. You know, they're not just a singular sacrifice, that it's everybody is making all these sacrifices to build a stronger and healthier community.
Mm-hmm.
Jean, we do have somebody raising their hand. I'm not sure if you can unmute them, but we do have one person that has a question, I know.
I actually asked that person to enter their question in the chat room.
Okay, great. I'll wait for her to answer that. In the meantime, we do have a comment asking if this presentation will be emailed, because they wanted to share it with people, and thanking you because this is very helpful. I believe this will be emailed after, correct, Jean?
Yes, we will be sharing a recording of a link to the recording, and I can also include a copy of the slides with that as well.
Oh, great.
That'll probably come next week, early next week.
Okay, we have another question. How can we best be beneficial as clinicians in responding to our elderly clients that are not only dealing with COVID-19, but have anxiety and worries about the images of social and racial injustice they see on the news?
Do you want to go first?
Tamar, well, start you off on this one.
Go ahead, Kerstin, and then I'll go.
Well, just so I understand the question completely, could you please repeat that? Because I think I had a little trouble with my computer microphone.
Yeah, absolutely. So how can we best be beneficial as clinicians in responding to our elderly clients that are not only dealing with COVID-19, but have anxiety and worries about the images of social and racial injustice they see on the news?
Well, I think for one, you know, to be effective is to acknowledge maybe what your clients are feeling, acknowledge their worry, you know, don't try to minimize it. Don't try to, you know, say it's not there, because it is there. That doesn't mean, and help them maybe not really normalize it, because again, you don't want to minimize it, but say, you know, yes, you know, there is a lot going on, and, you know, yes, the news can be very, you know, fearful. There's a lot going on with everything, but remember, that's just one story. That's just one part of the country. That's just one cities. That's not necessarily going to happen in our city or our community. And maybe reassure them that, you know, what the community or neighborhoods are doing to keep their seniors safe, their elderly safe, the different, you know, kind of everybody, the different communities safe that are in there, because we all have varying communities, you know, wherever we live, with many, many, you know, kind of races and ethnicities and cultures kind of out there. So just reassure them, but also acknowledge and don't minimize it or say that they shouldn't worry, because they're going to worry. And that might make them feel that, oh, I can't talk to this person anymore. They're telling me not to worry. No, I don't think so. So, Tamar?
I'm looking at it a little different, and I guess it depends on what the client is presenting. We're experiencing a time in our nation that is bringing forth a lot of issues. It's really bringing it to the forefront. I would acknowledge what the client is saying. I would ask them, what are they nervous about? What's going on? What's behind all those feelings? You know, what is this client's life experience? You know, Cleveland back in the 60s, through the riots, through all the issues that were going on, you know, maybe this is a trigger for stuff that they went through. Talk to them about that. What's going on for them? Acknowledge their feelings. Just engage in a real honest an honest conversation.
Mm-hmm.
And these are different times. You know, before it was under the rug. We knew it was there. Now so much is out in the public and on the news. It depends on what your client is doing. You know, the frame of reference that your client is coming from, and that's important. And that comes with the client-therapist relationship. You certainly never want to minimize that, and it's really important that there's a good, solid foundation. And, you know, sometimes it takes that therapist going back and having a good supervisory relationship. If they don't understand what's going on, it's okay to go to your supervisor and say, hey, you know, this situation is going on and I really don't understand. How can you help me with this? Racial diversity, the questions that are coming up. So that's how I would approach that.
Great, thank you. We have another question. I have a brother living out of town in California who is in a compromised health position who insists on being with family whenever he can. Is there any way I can get through to him from a distance? And do you have any recommendations of services in the LA area I can contact?
He insists on being with family. So does he have family there in the LA area?
It sounds like it's a long, I'm not sure. It's a good question. Bill, if you're able to clarify with your question, that would be great.
Because if he doesn't have anybody there and he can't travel, that's kind of nips that one right in the bud.
Yeah.
Services, if you are here like in Cuyahoga County and you're trying to find out how you can connect him with someone, what I would do is go on the internet and I would look up, you know, Los Angeles social services. And I'm sure there's different districts in there, and see what you can find. You know, you might even be able to reach out to our agency, We Care,
Mm-hmm.
and connect with them. They may be able to see if there's some services that they could connect you with. I may be wrong. It's worth a call to our agency and see if We Care can provide you with some information.
Or another thought is reach out to your local area on aging. You know, they as well can have a lot of great resources and link and connect to those of the community. And again, I don't know, it could be different, you know, based on, because we're based in Ohio versus California. But yeah, if you went into and looked on your local area on aging, for us, it's Western Reserve area on aging. You could look on NAMI. They also are a national organization, which has some great resources. So you could go on there and some help and support. And of course, you know, in Rose, we have the We Care, as Tamar had said. And what you got to lose by calling one of them? Besides a phone call. And did we figure out yet about the brother, if he has family?
Not responded. I guess you sort of answered the question if he didn't have family in town, but could you speak to if there was a way to get through to him if there is family in town and he's watching from a distance?
Well, I would think, and at least this would be for me, is again, I would take the approach is, you know, we would love to see you, but, you know, it's just, I'm not comfortable this year with it. You know, I would feel awful if you got sick or if I got sick. There's just so much going on with the pandemic. I just don't feel comfortable. I just don't feel it's safe enough right now. Could we talk maybe over the phone? Could we do one of the traditions that, Tamar had mentioned, from a distance to do instead? And then when there's a vaccination that's supposed to come out, maybe when things quiet down, then we can get together and have our celebration or our tradition of how we want to honor it. But definitely let them know you definitely want that connection, but just right now you're concerned for the safety of yourself as well as for him, and that you want to make sure that you can do a holiday in the future.
Yeah, Los Angeles has some strict, certain restrictions too, don't they? They have more restrictions, I thought.
They may.
Yeah,
I was going to make a note. You had mentioned the area agencies on aging. I will also include in the follow-up email a link to the elder care locator, which helps people link up with their local area agencies on aging, because those are across the country and can help people link to services. And as both Tam and Kerstin mentioned, our We Care Because You Do program may also be able to assist.
We do have one more question, it looks like. As clinicians, are we doing enough to address the psychosocial impact this pandemic is having on individuals? If not, what more can we do in real time to mitigate some of this psychosocial impact?
Well, I think, this is something that we have never experienced before. I think speaking for our agency, we acted rapidly. We acted to implement all the safety precautions, not only to keep our clients safe, but to keep our staff safe. Immediately we wanted to reach out to the clients right away so that they wouldn't feel isolated or abandoned. It's a learning experience. Every day it's something new that we're coming across. And, Benjamin Rose, we specialize in working with the older adults. Well, most older adults have difficulty working with technology. I myself can barely work the remote, let alone, iPads. So one of the things that we've had to do is work with clients on how to work iPads. We had an initiative on working with smart technology, smartphones, iPads. So I think as I attend meetings where different agencies are, I think clinicians are really doing the best that they can, and we're learning as we go. And it's good that the state has extended laws and policies where we're allowed to bill for telehealth, that they've extended things in terms of licensing deadlines.
Exactly. And I was going to just add on that really quickly, as I know we're coming close to our time, is, keep up to date on what, insurance companies, what county fundings are there, what programs there are there, that can fund additional services. Be aware of how you can use telehealth, phone calls, kind of even what we're doing, as Tamar had said. Make sure you're checking in with clients, wellness calls. Even if it's just a phone call to say, hey, haven't talked to you in a while, can we be there? Keep up to date on the current events in the news that are going on. So if a client talks to you about it, you can have an open discussion to see where they're at, to get their frame of reference, as Tamar had said, and kind of figure things out from there. And I guess just keep going with the instinct, again, talk to your supervisors, talk to your colleagues, talk to other people, get ideas from other people out there.
We have a day treatment program. We have a day treatment program that's 3 hours. And when COVID happened back in March, we initially did it for, what was it, an hour, Kerstin?
Correct.
And we did it by phone, right? And then we got up to about 2 hours, and we thought, no, this isn't going to happen. Do you know, we have that program 3 to 4 days a week, and people stay on the phone for 3 hours. I never thought it would take off. So it just to show you that one, we have 2 very committed clinicians, Kerstin and Loretta Regal. They turn themselves inside out to make it work. The clients enjoy it. So, you know, where there's a will and a commitment, there's a way. So, and I'm sure it's like that in many other agencies as well.
Exactly. And we were able to do that because, you know, we worked with our administration, you know, our upper administration, who were wonderful. We worked with it and we made it happen. But we wouldn't have been able to do that without the knowledge of what was available out there for us to be able to work that on.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other questions.
Okay, well, thank you for the chance and the opportunity for us to share just a little bit of information on this time. And I don't want to speak for tomorrow, but I wish everybody a very wonderful, wonderful couple months in holiday season. And remember, as they always say, we are all in this together, Ohio, or wherever you are from. Sorry.
Thank you, everyone. We appreciate it.
Thank
Yes,
you.
thank you all for joining. And I do want to let people know that, again, I will be sending out a follow-up email, and we'll include the copy of the slides as well as the link to that elder care locator. And mark your calendars for January 6th. We will be doing another virtual program for caregivers. We're still working out the details on that, but hopefully we'll have some information and possibly registration information included in the email as well. So thank you all for joining us, and have a great day.
Thank you. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Bye.